Now for the other animated environmental movie that I remember seeing from the 90s. And I think this might fare a bit better to some of you than Ferngully did, in that there's far less human bashing here.
He's back! He's back. Stuck in the mud. Walk to his knees. They came along. And they, well.
Once Upon a Forest was the third other animated film from Hanna-Barbera to not be based on one of their television shows. Meaning I may have to watch Heidi's song at some point to see if it has any animal themes that I could use for a review. But in any case, Once Upon a Forest was initially conceived by Ray Lambert, head of graphic design of HTV, in 1989, who pitched the movie under the title A Furlings Story to Hanna-Barbera Studios, and eventually, after going under another title, The Endangered, which got changed for the sake of the children, for obvious reasons, it would receive the title that it has now. And while that studio would have their hand in making the film, you won't see as much of their usual design as before, and that's mostly due to having several other studios involved, like Wang Film Productions, Phoenix Animation Studios, Turner Feature Animation, and more. With this and other things that I'll try to bring up later, the budget was set to about $13 million, but would go on to make back a little over half that amount. What happened? Well, let's find out. Time for me to revisit Once Upon a Forest. We open in Dapplewood, a seemingly peaceful place where on top of regular animals, we have anthropomorphic ones too.
When are you gonna learn to come when you're called? Abigail! Oh! There you are. I'll have you know that when I was a Furling, I couldn't wait to get to Cornelius's class.
Yes, Daddy.
I'd joke about this being American Tail related, but you know, seeing as how one of the executive producers was David Kirshner, who did create An American Tail and whose name is used for advertisement for this movie. Though it leads to one of the disappointments people have for this movie, as it certainly doesn't look like a Don Bluth movie. In other words, they wanted the animation to be like it. So in the way of main characters, we first have Abigail, voiced by Ellen Blaine, who only has her single-parent father and is rather mischievous. Then there's Russell, voiced by Paige Gosney, who could be the runt of his family given how they don't let him eat, or even be remembered by his own mother.
Not Roland, Mother. I'm Russell. Russell!
No, you couldn't be Russell. He's at Furling class.
Ow! That's harsh! Also, he's the only one in his family going to this one particular school. And they all look the same age. That's not fair. And finally we have Edgar, voiced by Benji Gregory, who might be the smartest of the group, but has no time to even kiss his mom goodbye. Won't that come back to bite him later? Now there is also Michelle, voiced by Elizabeth Moss, who also attends the school they go to, though maybe it's not necessarily a school. I don't know. But she's really more of a goal for later. Still...
Cornelius said I could go with her on your ramble today, but since you ladies probably forgotten all about it, I'll never ever get to see what the big surprise is. What took you so long?
She's so adorable! Hard to believe she's a badger when they're supposed to be bigger than all of them. And this is her uncle, Cornelius. And he has a pretty high-profile actor voicing him, Michael Crawford.
Late?
No. About this. My life's work. The flapper wingamathing.
So the Phantom is not only an excellent singer, but he's also a brilliant scientist. Just not good with names, though. It seems no one thought to teach these kids a little self-control when dealing with something delicate like this. But hey, at least they'll all learn a thing about gravity.
Great honk! Look what you've done!
Sorry, Cornelius.
Well, Furlings, there are times when we of science must learn to accept setbacks.
In fairness, you probably shouldn't be making something fly around when you have no way to really control it. Something was bound to break anyway. Well, he's not too mad about it. I mean, they still have that big surprise coming up. Also, while I say there's not as much human bashing in this, they do still allude to some of the cruelty that can come from humans. One being this trap that I believe Cornelius knows about, since he forbids the children from going out toward it, and that it's not their lesson for today. The other being the road, and what the road can bring. Later, bugs!
Russell, you are one lucky hedgehog. It's rare that a Furling survives an encounter with...
A monster?
That is a good name for it.
Now I know what you're thinking, considering what we saw last time, but I can assure you, it's justified here. In fact, this movie handles the human element a bit better than with Ferngully, due to how they go about it versus the other one. Like, keep in mind, despite these being anthro characters, they are still thinking on the level of an animal, and considering what we learn later, it does coincide with how wild animals may see us. For now, though, they find the super special awesome surprise. A boat. Ooh, is he gonna take us to the Palais Gopnir?
Gil, Russell, you paddle first. No. Stop. No. We'll never get anywhere that way. Now, together. Stroke. And stroke. And stroke.
Stroke? Wait, I think I'm having a stroke. Sometime later, though, they lose the paddle and end up capsizing. I'm sure they can salvage it, never mind.
Abigail, your performance out there could have cost us our lives. And as for the rest of you, in all my years, I've never had a more undisciplined...
Well, that can't be good. And yeah, one scene prior to this, we see what happens when something as pointy as half a broken glass bottle makes contact with a large truck carrying poisonous gas.
Gas! I've got to get help.
Note how this guy is being responsive over the mess he made and is seeking help. We see it, and know now that humans are not exactly the monsters Cornelius is making them out to be. But they don't know that. Yet. But until help can come, that gas is going to spread through a lot of the forest and kill any wildlife it can find. In fact, by the time our heroes make it back to their neck of the woods, most of the trees have withered away.
What's happened? Where is everyone? Mommy! Daddy?
Michelle, no!
Daddy, where are you? Mommy! Michelle, wait! No! Hello? Mommy, is that you? Wait, Michelle! It's dangerous!
No, Furlings! There's a deadly gas in there!
Okay, real quick, even with his upcoming backstory, I don't think it explains why he knows what gas is, or how it ties to humans. Abigail goes in after Michelle, covering her mouth only for a moment down there, and finds Cornelius is dead! Oh, wait, this one doesn't have scruffier hair. Never mind. Thankfully, Michelle is still alive, but in time, they learn she's in a coma. Also, it seems there's no one left in this forest but them. They fear the worst.
I was in such a hurry this morning. I never kissed my mother goodbye.
A reasonable reaction, and for a child, nothing is scarier than knowing your loved ones are gone and you have some kind of regret. The last thing you did and you feel like you did wrong to them, before never seeing them again. At long last, Cornelius tells them about his experience with humans.
During our bedtime story, when we heard the sound, Mother and Father told us to run. I was the first to the door, and that's when I saw them. Humans. We got out, but Mother and Father, they didn't.
Now at most, I can understand him finding humans bad because the ones he encountered took the lives of his parents. I'm just confused as to why these guys were out here in the first place and what the hell they were doing. Maybe they were gassing animals, and that's why he knows what it is, and maybe these guys were poaching in a rather cruel way. I don't know what you would call this, animal control, or if it really is poaching. But otherwise, it at least explains his fear of humans due to trauma as a little boy. Not understanding something, or only seeing something once, can do that, and affect your viewpoint, so yeah. This at least gives them some justification on calling humans monsters. Where they bring in the results of that one guy from before will matter way later on. But for now, Cornelius tasks the children in finding 2 particular plants to help Michelle recover.
We only have 2 days' time. The herbs must be applied before the moon wax is full, or it will be too late for Michelle.
You come with us, right?
I wish I could, but I dare not leave her side.
And you can't just take her along because... In seriousness, it makes sense to not want to bring a sick person with you, but you're still sending out a group of children who can barely get around without breaking stuff. You're pretty much sending them out on a whim and hope they can pull through. And well, that's what most of the movie is. It's a journey to find another meadow that has both ingredients and be back in time to heal Michelle before her conditions are irreversible or whatever. And even though this isn't a full-on musical movie, there are a couple songs present. This one being the best of them.
I can tell time by the moon. I can tell time by the sun. No matter how I mark the hours light and dark, I tell you your time's just begun.
I mean, it's Michael Crawford. A Broadway actor will often perform well in terms of music performances. And this one is him expressing his sorrows for his one and only niece, and hoping that she'll wake up and all this will just be one bad dream. It might not have many dynamic shots, or even bring in the other Furlings since they're just as scarred as Michelle, but it's still a decent scene that captures the mood of the situation. Next morning, the Furlings make some last-minute preparations that will hopefully help them out during the adventure, and Cornelius even gives them a map to the outskirts of the forest. That and the advice to avoid humans and always work together. And after they leave, it's nighttime again. Must have taken them that long to reach the outskirts, with the only thing out there being a single tree.
Wait, Abigail, haven't we come far enough for one day? Edgar, look at the moon. Cornelius said to get those plants to Michelle before it's full. We have to travel as far as we can tonight. But it's not safe out there. There's no cover. If it makes you feel better, we'll run for that tree, catch our breath, and plan the next move from there.
Maybe you should reconsider. I mean, you're not Emma. You don't have the gift of intelligence to pull off something crazy. But they go anyway, and after a brief argument over how difficult it is to cross while carrying supplies, Abigail gets taken by an owl. So naturally, Russell and Edgar have to go save her before she gets eaten. Though she does at least manage to evade being found. Guess this owl isn't very bright. That magnifying glass she decided to bring after all does find some use in the heat of the moment.
Can you see her yet?
Uh-huh.
Well, she's down. Mission accomplished. They still have to escape, and while they almost get caught again, Edgar inadvertently makes it flee after getting dirt in its eye. Good thing he's a mole.
That's it, Abigail. That's the last time I'm gonna let you get us into trouble. From now on, I'm gonna do...
You're right, Edgar. I was wrong. Thanks for coming to my rescue.
What about me? I broke your fall.
You too, Russell.
Well, she took that well and accepted her faults. Maybe she is the Emma of this group. Which means Russell would have to be Ray, despite having nothing in common. But Edgar can be Norman, since they're the smartest out of the trio. Which means something bad is going to happen to him. Just like with Norman. Oh god, I hope not. Well, after making up with each other, they decide to sleep. But it doesn't last long as they get awoken by the sound of a religious group of birds.
Brothers and sisters, it is indeed a sad day. One of our flock has crossed over to a better place.
According to Wikipedia, the preacher is voiced by Ben Vereen, and they got the South Central Los Angeles First Baptist Church for the birds. Not sure where they're going with applying Christianity with birds, but maybe we can learn something from...
And pay your last respects to our dearly departed Bosworth.
Goodbye, Mother.
Bosworth, oh my son.
Oh, come on, he's not even dead yet! This bird religion is seriously messed up. And though they don't reference humans, they do subtly allude to it being their fault their home is trashed. Only it's through these yellow dragons that we'll be seeing soon enough. Edgar decides to be the mammal savior, in this case, by coming up with a way to catapult the little bird child out of his sticky situation.
Bosworth, you're back. Oh.
He's back.
I see him moving. I see him moving. I see him moving.
Aren't you glad this detour happened? We get to see science thwart religion. Though, why does this kid have webbed feet? Whatever. Praise Bird Jesus!
He's back. He's back. Stuck in the mud. Walk to his knees. They came along. And they, well, hallelujah. well.
This is awesome. Black God rules.
Well, after that, the preacher tells them about where the nearest meadow is and warns them about the yellow dragons that took their homes. But he has faith in them. I mean, they saved a small child from oil. What's a yellow dragon gonna do? Oh, quick, turn into a sonic ball.
Suck in your stomach, Russell.
Oh, curse my body size. And now they know what a sewer is. Also, I know I need to address the fact that having anthro and normal animals in this is weird, but just a moment, I promise. After being flushed out of the sewers, they finally make it to the meadow they were looking for. Of course, they aren't able to explore right away because they get caught up in shenanigans with the locals.
I saw it first. You mice are all the same. Greedy little coward.
All this for an acorn? Really? And yeah, I think this might be the part of the movie where speciesism comes into play, because that's needed. It doesn't even last long since Edgar gets mad at this one squirrel for treating Michelle like dirt, and he takes charge in finding the ingredients, with or without them. It's like he has the most character development out of everyone. But getting back to the anthro and real animal design aspect, from the beginning we established that most animals are like their real life counterparts, while others are anthro to the point of wearing clothes. But it's strange that while squirrels were among the realistic looking animals, here we see them wearing clothes now. And also, in the sewers we saw rats that were realistic too, even though mice, like Abigail, are anthro. In movies like An American Tail, they usually keep it consistent on what animals as a whole are like, in which case they're all intelligent and may display signs of wearing clothing. But here it's mixed, which is strange in of itself, but in the case of this movie's attempt at racism, I have to question how it even works. How do you apply it to animals that are sentient and those who aren't? How come badgers, who are typically larger than rodents, and are considered predatory like that owl from earlier, get treated poorly when they probably don't go after other animals?
Why would a mole, a mouse, and a hedgehog want to help a foul-smelling, worm-eating, good-for-nothing badger?
And sure, realistically, animals aren't always going to tolerate each other, but I'm certain it's not for petty racist reasons like this dumbass squirrel keeps spouting. Anyway, the lungwort they need is up on a cliff face they can't reach. But luckily, when Russell was about to stress eat due to the stupid racist squirrel, he finds the schematic for Cornelius's flying machine, and they decide they should build a life-size version of it. Through a montage, the kids work together to build the machine, and with no one else's help too. Well, this might work in their favor after all. They're flying high in the sky and they're set to reach the herb.
Oh, don't worry, Edgar. I'll do it.
Oh, that's rough. I'm saving the animation critique for later since I've been invested in the mellowness of the movie so far. But yeah, even I can't ignore stuff like this. She just comes the hell out of nowhere. So Edgar once again steps up and saves Abigail from certain doom. It looks like the herb is gone, though, but nope, it got caught on the wing. With that, they're done here, and fly away from this meadow without saying goodbye to their new friends. And I mean it, we don't get any sort of resolution with them, not even with the squirrel, or with that one mouse who had some feelings for Abigail. Considering they cut 10 minutes of the movie out due to budget and time constraints, I imagine some of it included their time in this meadow. Might also explain one other issue I have with the kids' development. During their trip in the skies, which look pretty good for a flying scene, they eventually get caught up in a storm. And through some peril, they hit a power line and crash down back into dapplewood. Edgar knows this because earlier when the group was studying trees, he took a piece of the bark Cornelius gave him so it could be used as a convenient plot device. They return to Cornelius's place and it seems as though none of their parents ever came forward after all. And to make matters worse, it seems the humans have finally arrived.
Someone's outside! Cornelius, come here! Quick!
Oh no, not again.
Oh no, it's the Umbrella Corporation! Run! As they start to get away, Edgar gets separated and loses his clothes. I guess it'd be better this way if the humans didn't learn of the animal sentience. But now the moment we've all been waiting for.
There you go, little fella.
Edgar. Oh, Edgar.
In all my years, I've never...
All right, good. This area's cleaned up.
Now, as I said, this movie has a different way of showing what humans are capable of when dealing with the environment than with Ferngully. In that, they show humans can be destructive in the most blatant way possible, and while they address that good humans exist, they don't really do much to showcase it outside of one character and a few choice words. That and things got better mostly due to magic fairies cleaning up after them, rather than the humans doing anything. Here, humans caused the disaster that befell this forest and the marsh nearby, but you also see a group of humans cleaning up after said mess and even destroying leftover traps that people might have placed before. It shows that while they can cause harm, they are capable of fixing what they broke. They don't focus on the human destruction much here, so it's not always in your face. This movie has mostly focused on the animals trying to help a friend in need and having to survive harsh conditions. Not to mention, show value in teamwork and companionship. The environmental stuff is mostly secondary, and almost natural to what changes one may see from what they're used to. Well, now they're in a safer place, so they can give Michelle the medicine and hope she'll wake up next morning. And just as when Dr. Mustache saved Lucio, we do get some happy news in the morning. Though we still need to have a sad moment first.
Oh, my dear Michelle.
Mama? Papa? Uncle Cornelius? Why do you look so sad?
My goodness.
Michelle! You're all better!
Oh, Michelle, my child, you're all right.
Of course I'm all right. I just had a long nap.
Just don't tell her the bad news. Okay, they're gonna have to, but look! Cornelius sees the life-size replica of his creation. Now he's super proud of his students. And oh, look! Now everyone who was missing is starting to show up. Where the hell were you these last few days? Well, Michelle has to cope with her parents being gone, but she still has Cornelius. And Edgar?
Mama!
Edgar, when we ran from the gas, I was worried sick about you. Oh, did you forget your scarf somewhere?
No, Mama. This is what I forgot.
Oh, Edgar.
I guess nothing will ever be the same again. Will it, Uncle Cornelius?
Well, my dear, if we all work as hard to save Dapplewood as your three friends work to save you, it will be.
So, yeah, I think this reaffirms my belief that this movie is actually not bad. Like, it's not just about the environment. For again, that's more of a secondary issue that will sometimes appear, but mostly as part of an obstacle in the character's journey in saving someone. Its focus is on the value of teamwork and friendship, and while that doesn't always make for a compelling story, at the same time it's not like they handled it poorly. Everyone gets to contribute in some way, and they grow because of it. Though, if anything, I think that with the 10 minutes of deleted film, they could have given more time to Russell and Abigail, since they don't quite change a lot outside of being more intuitive. It's Edgar who develops the most, since he was smart but very timid at the beginning, and over time he shows moments of bravery and often takes action to the point where he could be a real leader. Also, they could probably do better in handling the topic of racism by actually putting time into it, instead of it being super brief and brush off any interactions they have in that one meadow. Like, this movie feels a bit unfinished, and while the animation looks fine for the most part, you start to notice minor issues with objects clipping into things, some strange blue screen-like effect work going on for the flying scenes. If anything, at least, the movie is pretty humble. It's a decent family movie that doesn't rely on too many of the common tropes that others use to make their movies grab the attention of kids while not teaching them something. And it doesn't demonize humans nearly enough to where it's obnoxious or preachy. It's all about having hope after a major disaster, and even little animals can experience that, even if it's just through fiction. But of course, that doesn't always sell, and part of its financial failings come from Jurassic Park, which came out June 9th of 1993, whereas this film came out on June 18th in the US. And not even a later UK release in October helped it, and of course critics were very mixed on it. Currently, Rotten Tomatoes has them at a 22% rotten rating, though audience ratings are at 69%. So at least general reception of this movie is probably more favorable than it was 2 decades ago. I do hope that more people see it as the lovable movie that it is. It's not the greatest 90s movie in the world, nor can I say it's the best Hanna-Barbera movie in the world, but it's at least worth watching, and I'm happy to have revisited it as I did many years ago. I'm the Media Hunter. Media's my prey, and reviewing them my way.
Check this out. I've a basic inclination